Hi, this is Matt Levy of Patent Progress. In this video, I'll talk about the pharmaceutical industry's campaign against inter partes review. Inter partes review is a program at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that allows someone to challenge a patent and ask the PTO to take a second look. If you're not familiar with IPRs, you might want to read a post I did a while back explaining the basics. Now, the link is below. Pharmaceutical companies have basically been arguing that IPRs aren't fair and actually put investment in life-saving drugs at risk. They're actually arguing that if their patents aren't exempt from being challenged, they'll have to cut back on research and development. Now, the truth is, as I'll show you in this video, IPRs haven't hurt the pharmaceutical industry at all. First, let's take a look at some basics about pharmaceutical patents. It's absolutely true that a new drug takes a long time to develop and involves a lot of risk. When a new compound is created, there's no guarantee that it'll turn out to be medically useful. Assuming that a new compound does have a therapeutic use, it takes somewhere around 7 to 10 years to do trials and get FDA approval. That means there's generally around 10 to 13 years of life left on the patent for the new drug when it finally goes on the market. It's during this period where the patent's in force and the drug's on the market that a pharmaceutical company makes its biggest profits. Because no generic manufacturer can make the drug without infringing the patent, the lack of competition results in high prices and large profits. Now, that doesn't mean an off-patent drug isn't profitable, but it does mean that profits on an off-patent drug are a fraction of what they were during the exclusivity period. In fact, the profits are so large that pharmaceutical companies engage in various techniques to keep their exclusivity for as long as possible. Generally, this is called evergreening, and it involves filing new patents to cover existing drugs. These new patents can cover new uses for the drug or new formulations, and the net effect is that the pharmaceutical company keeps generic manufacturers out of the market longer and is able to keep its prices high. This is the main reason that pharmaceutical companies typically have profit margins of 20% or more. Actually, the pharmaceutical industry is the most profitable industry in the world. In 1984, Congress passed the Hatch-Waxman Act. Hatch-Waxman is a complicated compromise that's intended to get generic drugs on the market more quickly. I'm not going to explain much about it, but there is one feature of the act that you do need to know. One of the requirements for brand name pharmaceutical companies is that they have to list the patents that cover their drugs. This allows generic manufacturers to make decisions about when to try to enter the market, because if they think the remaining patents are invalid, they can go ahead and take the risk of applying for approval to the Food and Drug Administration. The patents are listed in a publication called the Orange Book. Pharmaceutical companies are claiming that IPRs are somehow unfair to them, so unfair that they'll have to cut back on research into new drugs unless medical patents are exempted from being challenged. First of all, this is an empty threat. The profits the industry makes are so high, they're not going to go out of business anytime soon. Second, there's no evidence that the pharmaceutical industry is being harmed by inter partes review. If IPRs really put pharmaceutical companies at a disadvantage, we'd expect to see Orange Book patents, those patents listed with the FDA, being invalidated through inter partes review. But as we'll see, Orange Book patents aren't being challenged frequently, and even when they are challenged, they're surviving intact. So the first key fact. Orange Book patents are rarely challenged in inter partes review. There are several thousand petitions filed, and there are currently several thousand patents listed in the Orange Book. Out of the thousands of IPR petitions that have been filed, only about 4%, or 123 petitions, are challenging patents listed in the Orange Book. That makes up a very small percentage of patents in the Orange Book. Only 96 patents, or about 3% of the patents in the Orange Book, have been challenged using IPRs. So the overwhelming majority aren't being challenged anyway. Out of the 96 patents that have been challenged in IPRs, 89 are also being challenged in district court proceedings. In other words, nearly all of the Orange Book patents being challenged are being used by the patent owners to sue other companies. That leaves only 7 Orange Book patents being challenged only by IPR. And those 7 are all secondary patents. In other words, those are attempts to extend the exclusivity period of covered drugs, not the original patents for the drugs themselves. The second key fact is that when Orange Book patents are challenged, they win. So far, there have been 123 petitions filed on Orange Book patents, as I mentioned before. Out of those, about half are still waiting for decisions. A fifth have been declined outright. That means that the Patent Trial and Appeals Board didn't think that there was enough of a question about their validity to bother instituting a review. There have been a few decisions on that 27%, on those petitions that have been instituted, the 27%. So far, those results have been unequivocal. The number of patents that have been invalidated comes to a nice round number. That's right. Not a single Orange Book patent has been invalidated through inter partes review. So what does all this mean? It means that the pharmaceutical companies are complaining about an imaginary problem. In all the letters to the editor, op-eds, and speeches, no one has identified a single pharmaceutical patent that was invalidated in an inter partes review by the Patent Trial and Appeals Board. And no one has pointed to a single decision as an example of the PTAB getting it wrong. The fact is that inter partes review is working well, and Congress should leave it alone. For more information on this and other patent-related issues, go to patentprogress.org. Thanks. Hope you found this video helpful.